Like everybody's attention, call the meeting to order. Since it is 6:30. We'll try and keep it on schedule here. The Township of Black River Matheson acknowledges the Abitibi and Anishinaabe Nation traditional territory. We live, play, and work here together, and together we shall build a strong and inclusive community. And I'd just like to add a reminder to all in attendance that our council meetings are recorded and made available to the public on the township website for review. So our owl is keeping an eye on us. Item 2, confirmation of the agenda. And need a mover and a seconder. I got Councillor Brewer and Councillor Gadry. Just looking to see it. I thought Dan had his hand up. Thank you.
It was moved by Councillor Drewer and seconded by Councillor Gadry that the agenda for the regular council meeting of February 28th, 2023 be approved as printed.
Yes, Madam Clerk.
If council would entertain, I'd like to add a closed meeting under section 239 subsection 2 clause B for personal identifiable individual regarding alleged charges under the Planning Act and staffing levels.
It's okay with the mover and seconder. All those in favor? Carried. As amended. Thank you. Item 3, anybody have a disclosure of pecuniary interest and or general nature thereof? Seeing none? Item 4 is adoption of minutes, and we need a mover and a seconder again. I got Councillor Brewer and Councillor DeMarchi.
Was moved by Councillor Drewer, seconded by Councillor DeMarchi that the following minutes are hereby adopted. Minutes of a regular council meeting held February 14th, 2023. Minutes of a special council meeting held February 15th, 2023. Minutes acknowledged are minutes of a health and safety meeting held February 16th, 2023. And minutes of a special joint council with Aqua held January 18th, 2023.
Thank you. All those in favor? Seeing no objections, carried. Item 5, consent agenda. We have any? No. Okay. So then we're just going to move to item number 6, which is delegations. We have our delegations. I'd like to welcome Holly Sutton from J.R. Richards. Going to give us an overview. I like to call it brief, but a general overview of the proposed addition to the municipal office. Welcome, Holly.
Hi, everyone. Oh, thanks for having me. Hi, I'm Holly. I'm from JL Richards, and I'm an intern architect here. And I'll just I'll share my screen, and I'm just going to run through just briefly the concept design of the building and the site for the proposed municipal office addition, and then a couple of key items from the report that we have prepared as well. Oh, it says host disabled participant screen sharing.
No, what's the last time? There we go. Should be good now.
Okay, thank you. And I know once I share my screen, I might not be able to see you guys, so just let me know when you guys can see. Can you see my screen?
You can, yes, go ahead, Ollie.
Okay, awesome. Okay, so this is our draft preliminary design report for the Matheson Municipal Office Edition. So I won't go through into too much detail, but basically what we were looking at, we had some main objectives with this project. So a big thing was to have a section of the facility to be used for public functions, council chambers, washroom, entrance, things like that. Currently, the existing building more functions as primarily an office space for staff. So we were looking at mixing in some of the more public functions of a municipal office, also providing a lunchroom and additional office space. We were also looking at how potentially the upper level of the building could be utilized, which was a request of the township. So just a couple of items. So the new addition will be designed to meet Ontario Building Code and AODA standards. So it should be fully accessible for the areas for the public and for staff to use. We'll get a little farther into this, but there are some items which can be grandfathered in because the building is over 5 years old. So primarily our review was for the areas that would be accessed for the public, and then making sure that staff could also access the building properly. In terms of sustainability, it was indicated that we would meet the minimum standards of building systems required by the OBC. So the first item within the report was looking at that attic space that is above the primarily occupied space of the building. So we were looking at two different items with reference to the attic space. One was in terms of OBC and specifically exiting. We did find within our review that because there's not a secondary exit for that space, there is some concern about if it should be occupiable or not. Our findings were that it should not be unless you provide a secondary exit at somehow. This being said, while we were doing our review of the proposed addition, we did consider utilizing this space, but the cost to provide the secondary stair really would impact the budget. And so we aimed to go in a different direction with the design. Another thing we looked at for the attic space was structurally how safe it would be. So there are some concerns with some cracks that were observed within that space, which is a result of the shape of the trusses at the stairs. So our recommendations are to have some weight restrictions imposed on that space, particularly beside the stairway. That being said, as the space should not be intended to be occupied based off of our findings of the OBC review, this is something that we can leave up to the town on how they would like to address this. But those were our findings specific to the attic space. But the much more interesting part of the project, obviously, is the addition. But I just thought I'd highlight that and just run through that in case anyone had any questions of why we were not utilizing that space. So the report, was there a question?
Don't think so, Holly, go ahead.
Okay, sorry, I thought I heard something. So the remainder of the report, we run through the different spaces provided within the existing space and the addition in the new layout. I won't run through all of this. It will be much more, it would make a lot more sense to look at the actual plan because I find this is just a breakdown of what is in each space and what we will be doing with each space. So it'll be a lot more productive, I think, to look at the actual plan. But just to kind of give you a summary of what we have provided within our report, we also looked at a high-level building systems discussion in terms of, you know, what would this addition be composed of? What would the ceiling heights, the finishes, millwork? Because we don't have some information such as a geotechnical report. I know Chris had provided some additional information after we completed a report, which we'll look at for the next phase. But at the time of this report, we didn't have any information on geotech or survey. So you'll find within the report, there are some areas with gaps of knowledge, just because without some of that information, we can't provide an opinion. So things like foundations and some of the work related to the site. But we do have a lot of information in terms of building finishes, what mechanical and electrical equipment we would propose within the addition. I won't go into detail of all of this, but it's a pretty thorough understanding of what we would be adding, what we can keep from the existing building to support this new addition, and what potentially we would need to upgrade to service the addition. The final two sections are the site requirements and the planning requirements. So we took a high level look at this again, because we don't have all of the information that we would need for a bit farther along. There's some items where we couldn't quite give a full breakdown of what we would propose, but we put some assumptions in and kind of did our best to give some recommendations with the information we do have. And yeah, so then we provided the planning requirements that we would need. There are some things that we've learned about the site since we started investigating it, as particularly that the site is sandwiched between the railway, Highway 101 and Highway 11. So there will be some constraints imposed on the proposed addition and by the Ministry of Transportation and CPR. And then the final section of the report outlines kind of our next steps. Again, going through some of the constraints and challenges from a planning perspective, some of the information that we would like to get from a more technical perspective for civil and structural disciplines. And that's the gist of the actual report. The plan itself, I'll just, if I'm okay to share this. This is the conceptual design of the site. Now, there are there will be some hoops to jump through in terms of some of those planning requirements. So just please keep that in mind. We're going to have to figure out what those requirements are from the railway and from the highway. But at the moment, this is what we were proposing. And this is the configuration we would be looking at. So this is the existing building, and this is our addition. And these are the site upgrades. So we're still looking at accessing the site from the same drive. We would look at having a paved parking area. There's a couple of other different things across the site to look at. I won't go through all of them, but the whole idea was to work with the township to a more inviting kind of face of the town when you drive in. So signage, the idea of a large place finding object. I know you've all seen the different giant fish, things like that. So whatever, we didn't go into that much detail. We'll leave that up to you. But we've provided all of the things that would make a very interesting and dynamic site. And then if we go to our plan, so again, this is the second level, and this is our ground floor. So the grayed out areas are existing. I will mention that the existing configuration is remaining very similar to how it is currently, that with a couple revisions, which once we get into more detailed design would be shown on our demo and new drawings. But currently this is a large board office, and we're breaking it into administration space and a lunch space. And currently this is the main entrance. So this would be an open work area. But basically you would walk in through the vestibule, you'd have your reception area, and this area would kind of remain more for the public, and this would be more for the private. So you could go into the workspace, or you can go in for meetings and things like that. from our Ontario Building Code review, we did find that with the addition and the additional space and the public use, you would require additional washrooms. You would also require a universal washroom, which is something you require by code. We're also adding a small meeting space, a photocopy space. This would be our mechanical room. Currently, the mechanical and electrical are in this room at the back, but we would require additional space. So we're proposing to have it here. Also, we have included a vault, or our vault room. The size was provided by the township. And that's really the gist of the layout. This is an idea that the concept that we had provided for the different materials and finishes and the shape of the building, the massing. And then I'll just skip quickly to our OPCC, so our opinion of probable cost or construction cost. So how we've broken this down is we have a more detailed breakdown that we use to come up with some of this, but specifically the site work, because there's a lot of moving parts, but we have it broken down between the addition, interior renovations, and site work. So the addition being the red portion of the project here. We would require some interior renovations to make this addition work with the current configuration. So we've allotted for an amount there. And then our site work would be everything included in the proposed here. And I will mention that I know the site is very large, but for the purposes of this this exercise, we were looking at just this section of the lot. And just to give you a little background, currently we've had a project, an addition come in from costing, and it's approximately the same size, and our cost per square foot of $600 per square foot is on par with what we got from that costing. Same with our project contingency. So basically we have our contractor's general overhead, we have the project design contingency, and then we also have our construction contingency. We do go a bit higher because at this stage, there is a lot that hasn't been defined. So typically at this stage, what we have allotted is what we typically give. When we get a bit more detailed, we can kind of finesse this to make sure it's on par with our design. But at the moment, specifically our foundations, all of the civil work, there are a couple of things that we can't account for. So that's why we have a bit of extra cushion for the construction contingency. We have allowed for an allowance for a geotechnical and topographic survey, permits and fees, and then an allowance for fit up, so furniture and moving. We have not included our fees just because at the moment there's a couple of things to be sorted out in terms of our scope and things like that. So we haven't included that. And then, yeah, I think that's about it. I'm just looking on my list to see if there was anything else. Nope, I think I went through it all. So I'll leave it to you guys if you have any questions.
Does council have any questions for Holly? Yes, Councillor Markey.
Through your worship, the cost estimate, was it done when the prices were through the roof? Like, as far as lumber, for example, it's about a third of the cost it was 2 years ago now. Was that taken into consideration with the price estimate that we have?
So our cost estimate that we're showing right now was completed back in February. And we're basing a lot of our numbers currently off of the costing that we're seeing coming in right now. So like I said, we've had a project come in addition of a similar size, similar construction, and it came in at $615 dollars per square foot. So it's pretty recent. You know, we were actually, this time last year, most of our OPCCs were higher, like we would put them closer to $700 because of the insane pricing during COVID. So we have come down a little. This is it come down, unfortunately. We would, at this stage, I wouldn't be comfortable going any lower than this.
Yes, Councillor Markey?
The foundation, there's no cost estimate on that yet because of geophysical stuff.
No. So we put an allowance in for now within our cost.
Okay, so this could go up or down.
Yeah, and that's why we have our a pretty hefty contingency. It's for those things that haven't been ironed out. And like I said, once we get more detailed and we know what those foundations are, we know all of the construction, then we can say, oh, we're going to be a bit lower, or higher based off of our cost per square foot, and then our construction contingency will be reduced. But it'll depend what this is going to be. Basically, we don't know the foundations at this point.
Thanks, Holly. Is there any other councillors with a question? No questions from anyone else? I had one question, Holly, myself, and it was just regarding the cost. I see your, I heard a number originally about the overall cost estimate, which is a lot more than the $600 per square foot. $600 per square foot, I think is pretty realistic myself based on my own experience, especially with way times are. $600 per square foot is fairly realistic. But if you do the math on that, that works out. If my math is correct, we're looking at about 2,000 square foot addition. That's about 1.2 million for the actual building portion.
So it's gonna be 3,400 square feet. And so basically, I'm trying to understand what the question is. Sorry.
Just trying to figure out the exact overall cost, because I heard a number of 4 million, and when I do the math on when originally I was looking at 2,000 square feet, but even if you go up to 3,400 square feet, you're looking at just slightly shy of 2 million.
We have to take into account also the additional site work that's happening. You're almost at $1 million in fees just for the site work. So I'd like to just make sure we're taking that into consideration also. And typically, like, I can provide a cost per square foot total after all of the contingency, but this is how we've been setting up our OPCCs, but I can provide the finalized one, but this is on par with what we're seeing.
And obviously, just as an observation, obviously the only price tag that's realistic is once it goes out for quotations and so on and so forth.
Yeah, because even like just the last couple of years, I found like we've been putting together OPCCs, even we've been sending them out to cost consultants, and I've been pretty shocked when the tender comes in and it's just completely I'd like to say that I can give you a 100%, but I really can't, and especially at this stage when it's so early. But even when we have OPCCs from cost consultants that are class A, they're still not always 100% accurate, unfortunately. And I've been seeing it increasing in the last year or two just because of COVID, things going up, things going down, and it depends on your contractor.
That's good information. Thank you. Does anybody else have any questions for Holly? Nobody else has any questions? Staff questions? Chris?
Not for Holly, but
No.
Holly did mention it. There is some work to do with O&R and with MTO. And so one of the interesting things that I found out was that the current building actually encroaches on O&R property.
Really?
So that's one issue that we're gonna have to work out. MTO, because of where the building is, they're gonna have to be engaged. They're already aware, of course, that we're doing stuff there. I mean, it would be great if we get an entrance on the Highway 11, but because of where that entrance is coming off 101 onto 11, it's not likely. We're likely going with the entrance that we currently have with some improvements there. That entrance also is owned by ONR. So the unfortunate thing is the township doesn't have a lot of documentation when all this was done, or at least we're not aware because of the manner in which it was done previously. So those are some issues that we'll have to work out. I have no reason to believe that ONR won't help us. They certainly will, and MTO seems to be wanting to work with us as well. As Holly also indicated, I was able to get all the information from Wishart Law that they had, which include geotechnical surveys and whatnot, which I passed on to GL Richards so that they can have a look at it, see how that might affect the price. But the other thing that council might want to think about too is when you look at the project, if you add in what you paid already for the building and what you're going to get as a return from the additional land that likely will be severed and sold, if you net all that out, then that's what your true cost is going to be for the building. So it's not quite the number that Holly's indicating, notwithstanding adjustments, but it's going to be somewhat probably less than that because of all those things are just indicated. And so what you'd want to do maybe at the end of the day is boil down how many square feet do we have, how much do we pay for it, less the monies that we got for the additional land, and there's your price per square foot.
And something else to keep in mind, if you do consider going after any type of funding, it's, in my experience, it's always been better if you do have a backup, like an order of magnitude or an OPCC, it's almost better to have it on the higher side and say, hey, this is how much our addition is going to cost, and then go after the funding. Because, you know, I've had situations where I've seen clients go in and try and get that funding and say, oh, it's going to be 1 million, and then it comes in at 2, and their funding only covers 1 million. So I would, if I were you, and if you were going to go after any type of funding out there, just putting this out there, it's better to have a higher cost estimate to back you up.
The one of the things that we've talked with Holly about is an application to GCIB, which is the Green Communities Infrastructure Fund. I think that's the fund we got the money for the arena. And so what Holly advised us was what she just said about the higher cost. But we're not there yet. We've got to go to RFP and figure out what the real cost is, and then look at getting into the next round for that application. Now that would indicate that we might be able to do some things to the building so that we can shave our costs down, like on energy, for example, which is what we did at the community center and insulation, that type of thing. So there's still some steps to go.
Is there anything more that you wanted to tell council, Holly?
No, I think that is pretty much it. Everything's kind of, all of the next steps are summarized within the report. So I think leaving it in your court, and just let me know if you need anything else, I guess.
Well, thank you very much, Holly, on behalf of council and staff. I'd like to thank you for your time and your efforts, and definitely stay tuned.
Okay,
No, nobody else from council has any further questions tonight? Okay, well then, thank you very much, Holly.
Okay, thanks, guys. Have a good night.
Thank you. There's a motion on one? Yes, there is. You need a mover and a seconder. Moved by Councillor DeMarchi, seconded by Councillor Gadry.
Moved by Councillor DeMarchi, seconded by Councillor Gadry, that council receives report 31944-000 from JL Richards regarding the preliminary design for the municipal office as information, and that council directs staff to take the next step in this process and issue an RFP for the municipal office extension.
Any further questions or anything from the mover, from Councillor DeMarchi?
I just have one question, which is for Chris. Did you say that the building is encroaching on our property?
Yeah, just the one corner of it. It's not very much, but it's encroaching, and we don't have an encroachment agreement with ONR. So, you know, it's just one of those things that probably happened when the building was built.
Obviously,
And
yeah.
O and R wasn't paying attention or they didn't really care. So, but we're gonna have to deal with it because to leave the encroachment there without an agreement, wouldn't be proper. I wouldn't want somebody from O and R after we do the extension to come back and say, oh, by the way, you're on our property.
Can that be done back to the sales, the selling of the property to us?
Sorry, can you
Like-
clarify that, Dan?
We had lawyers obviously
Yeah.
look into this. Shouldn't that have been picked up?
I would have thought. Now, remember I said, I'm not aware of all the documentation. The CAO at the time sort of handled the whole thing, so we may uncover, right? And I'm hoping that there is an encroachment agreement. Maybe I talk to O and R and they say, oh, by the way, yeah, there's this encroachment agreement. Okay, great. Then that takes care of that issue. The bigger one for me is the road. Because that's on O and R land. So I would hope. I understood the road was transferred to us, but I don't see any documentation that suggests that.
Might have to do a helicopter landing pad.
Could be, but you know, this is the type of thing that you typically see in a lot of rural northern communities where there's bigger organizations involved and things happen and it's, you gotta sort it out when you can, right?
Thank you for the question, the answer. Councillor Gadri, anything further? Any other members of council have anything further on this motion? Yes, Councillor Dunn.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Speaking in the community, this is like the white elephant in the room. So. Obviously, this is just a price, this is just an estimate, but. Nobody's happy with the original purchase of the building that we're in now. And let alone to. Tell them that we're gonna go and. Get. RFPs for this, and it's gonna come in very close, obviously, that's the way the building industry works, right? They know what this price is, everybody comes in within 5 or 10% of it. So. One of the problems I have when you do a lot of research into the design is, one is that we want the community to be vibrant and be big and look professional, but the size of our council chambers is probably twice the size of our old office building.
It's an interesting observation because it was bigger, the original design, it was bigger, and I said, oh no, that's way too big. That is something that we can look at cutting down. I would need some direction from council on how many public space people that you'd want to fit in there, for example. Knowing, of course, if you got a large attendance, maybe you could move the meeting to another location just for that time. So that's possible too, because we don't get a lot of attendees to our council meetings, right? So that's very possible to
Well, if
squirrel
we
that down.
approve this, we're gonna get a lot of attendees at our future meetings.
Oh, no, but yeah,
Yeah.
we could approve it with an adjustment to the resolution, but I would tend to agree with you. It looks large, and so if we can reduce that, I'm all in favor of it. That makes some sense to me. But you know, on the issue of the elephant in the room, I think that one of the things council needs to remember is we paid $771,000 for the land and the building as it is now. You would not be able to obtain that land and the building for that price now. It would probably be multiples of that. So that's one thing. Now, mind you, we did have to do some corrections to the sewer and whatnot there that did cost us some money. And we may have inherited some issues with O&R that hopefully we can get fixed. So if we don't expand the building, then we have a significant problem. And where's the plan B? Well, we don't have one. We've got to expand the building or go to another location, or because we can't go back to the old office. I don't think any of the staff will be there any longer. The new office is functioning well now. I think we can keep it that way for a while, provided that people see that there's something coming, right? So I understand what you're saying about that, but I think it's up to the township and the council to put a positive spin on this to the community. People don't understand generally what the municipality does. So when they go in and they see people wandering about and whatnot, they got too many people here, or the building's too big for those people. It's really not. Like even the 4 washrooms, that's required by code. Most people would say, well, you don't need 4 washrooms, you only need 2. But no, that's not true. Parking spaces, same thing, right? So we've even, I'm sure I talked about it before and you probably saw in the drawing. We even put a place for the Mennonite folks to come and tie up their horses, they can have water there and whatnot, which means that we're thinking about the entire community. And then, of course, as you said, Council Diamond, the issue of it being sort of it's at the corner of 101 and 11, and it's gonna make the community look professional. Anyway, sorry, sort of go on.
No, that's good. Thank you, Chris. I appreciate those comments. Anybody else from council have any questions? Yes, Councilor DeMarchi, one more time.
Through you, okay, thank you, Your Worship. Through your worship to Chris again. I believe she said it was like $1 million for the landscaping part of things.
So about 795,000, yeah.
Can we absorb some of that cost with our guys?
That was one thought that had crossed my
Plant
mind. I
trees,
haven't had that
grass.
discussion with Holly yet, but I think if you put the matter out for RFP, we'll include that in the RFP. Because we do have equipment and we have men. So that might be some way that we can shave some of the cost down just using our own forces. So it makes a lot of sense that way.
Thank you, Councilor DeMarchi. Councilor Drew, I seen your hand up.
Counselor DeMarchi got my question.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you. Yes, Councilor. Neal.
Your worship, through Chris. As far as the purchase of the building. And again, the lawyers that did the sales agreement. And with the work that should have been done, can that legal firm be contacted? Because the legal firm should know whether or not the ONR has an agreement with the township.
We can contact them again, Councilor Neal, but I did ask for everything they had on the file. So, but it's easy to contact them. It's just an email to say, do you have this? The other thing is we do have title insurance. Okay, so on the encroachment issue, the title insurance would cover that off if there was some cost for that.
Yes,
Follow
Councilor.
Christian, the driveway that's coming in. Was that driveway an engineered driveway or just one that we put in ourselves?
That's, nobody knows when it was there. It was just there, like, it's been there for like decades.
Okay.
So, and I think the reason it's there is because what I said, the entrance on Highway 11.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much. Yes, Councilor Diamond.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I still have a hard time with saying, let's go ahead tonight to get an RFQ. Because in the public's eye, we just spent $4.2 million because they don't understand the process of get proposals and get quotations. So I would rather us look at, now that we have this number, look at trying to shave some money, shave some size, shave some site work, whatever it is. And then that way the public will see that we at least try, right? You don't go and buy the first house you look at. And I think that would be our due diligence to try and come up with a better number rather than just accepting the first number we're gonna get. Because the public, like I said, is gonna think that we just spent 4.2. Could come in at 3.4, could come in at 5.4. But I think we gotta spend the money wisely. Now, I don't know what the cost is to, if we do come up with a smaller size and if we design for Dale Richards to redo it, but that's my opinion.
Yeah, if you're, so
Go ahead, Chris.
if you're gonna look at shaving some down, like for example, the council chambers, then I would say for J.L. Richards to redo the design, because they wouldn't likely redo the report, maybe they publish it then, but just to redo the design, the way it looks, it's small numbers compared to what you're gonna spend. Right? So it's probably okay that way. And I'm more than willing to go back and have a chat with them. I wanna make sure we get this right when we go ahead. In the meantime, we've got a bulletin coming out. And so maybe we can put something in the bulletin about this to try and educate people on this. So I'm not going to educate everybody, but at least attempt it.
Is there any other questions from council members? If not, I was just gonna make my own comment. I agree 100% with you, Councilor Diamond, that the public consideration of that building was a white elephant as far as the money spent, costs, all the rest of that stuff. But obviously, we need a proper spot for our employees to work. Never mind the professionalism and the rest of the good stuff that goes with it. So obviously, we had to get out of the old building. The old building was unsafe. And actually, we sort of had that discussion of moving this business back to that same building. So there's issues there, and we had to do something. So obviously, as much as I disagreed with that actual process per se, it was the best option at the time, I guess. So, and now we're the group that's gonna have to live with, not only live with it, but find a way to make it workable and try to make everybody understand and try to do exactly what you're saying is reduce those costs down to something that we can all live with and still get the end result because we do have to have I mean, that was one of the things that wasn't even in my actual report from Roma was that was one of the sessions was the one point they made was that part of the attraction and retention of employees was to give them proper workspace. And I think we all agree that no matter what business or what job you do, your workspace has to be conducive for you to be successful. And we do have that responsibility to our employees as well as the taxpayers. So we have to do something. So I don't know if the next stage is to amend this resolution or just to go ahead and vote on it and decide how we're going to deal with that.
Well, the motion, sorry, Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
may I speak?
Yes.
So the motion on the table is directing staff to go to the next step. If council is not comfortable with that motion, then I would suggest that someone amend it. So a council member move to amend the motion to reflect exactly what it is that council would like for staff to do.
Yes, Councilor Diamond.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to amend the motion then to have staff go back to Jail Richards and try and reduce cost and size. With nothing specific, but just come up with a second option.
And just to add to that, I actually forgot the one thing I was going to mention to the CEO, Chris. Like when you mentioned about the encroachment, I'm seeing some of that new addition looks like as if it basically goes out to where the staff are parking. So I'm wondering if that area would be part of that encroachment problem again. So we may have to
No.
look at that.
My recollection is that GL Richards stayed away from that, but I can ask them.
So anyway, that would be all. So the only, if we have an amendment here, we'd have to. Get that. Okay, by the move the second, correct?
I'm drafting the amendment,
Oh,
Mr. Mayor. I will
okay,
need
thank
I will need a seconder in order to table it though.
Seconded by Councilor Gavin. Yes.
If we're gonna go back to Richards too, I will pose Councilor DeMarchi and Councilor Drew's question to them about using both our own forces and what that might do to the system as well. Because I think that's very worthwhile looking at. Yeah, and MTOs also, I didn't talk to them specifically about the building, but when I talked to them about the highway design and any capital work that might be required, they did say that they're willing to partner with us to save costs on both sides. So for example, maybe if the timing's right, our parking lot can be paved in conjunction with those folks too. That might shave some of the costs off.
Yes, Councilor Diamond.
Maybe, Mr. Mayor, can we also put in some report somewhere in there that and just do like a net cost, so take out the sale of the old building, what it might be, as well as the sale of the adjacent land.
Yeah.
Just so that we get a true cost of what the office.
Yeah, the
complex would be.
net.
Net.
Yeah, we can do that. So likely what we'll do is when Richards comes back with whatever they come back with, we'll do a staff report to council. We'll include all those things as well, because I think that's a good idea. So people can understand what the true bottom line is, right? And remember, council should remember that we're waiting for Boreal, the Northern Boreal land valuation folks to come back with an estimate on what the value of the acreage right next to our current building is, and the old building plus the 90 acres down the highway as well. So we'll have an idea from a budget perspective what those properties might affect.
And then I believe it'd be correct in saying, and then council can make your decision on where the proceeds of those sales get directed.
Yeah, that's council's decision, absolutely.
So if that helps us out I mean, it's semantics, I guess, at the end of the day, but I mean, we obviously want to make this as affordable as possible for all concerned and still end up with the right result. We got a resolution there, Madam Clerk?
We do. So the amendment resolution reads as moved by Councillor Diamond and seconded by Councillor Gattery, that council directs staff to work with JL Richards in order to reduce size and cost of the current proposal and bring back the adjusted plan and overall adjusted costs. And finally, that staff provide a side report, which reflects the final net cost of the municipal land/building.
All those in favor? Seeing no objections, carried.
So then, Mr. Mayor, I'll reread now the
Yes,
original
please.
motion with the amendment.
Please, Madam Clerk.
Moved by Councillor DeMarchi and seconded by Councillor Gadry, that council receives report 31944-000 from JL Richards regarding the preliminary design for the municipal office as information. And that council directs staff to work with JL Richards in order to reduce size and cost of the current proposal and bring back the adjusted plan and overall adjusted cost. And finally, that staff provide a side report, which reflects the final net cost of the municipal land/building.
I think that all makes sense. It sounds like it captured everybody's concerns and considerations. All those in favor of the resolution? Seeing no objections, carried. Thanks for everybody's input. Yeah, we're gonna move on to C then, eh? The delegation under B is not here tonight due to weather. So then our next item is 6C. We have a presentation from Mario Levite, Impact Council Orientation. The floor is yours, Mario.
Is that from yours fine?
Pardon me?
Was that from yours fine or?
Wherever you're comfortable.
Okay, good. So, yeah, so, hi, my name is Mario Levite. I'm the account manager with municipal and stakeholder relations at Impact. And I work closely with municipalities within the Temiskaming, Cochrane, Timmins, and James Bay area, and my office is located in the city of Timmins. First, I'd just like to take a minute, to congratulate all council members on your elections, and I do look forward to working with you in 2023 and beyond. And just know that we are here to help, and we have a great municipal and stakeholder relations team to answer any questions that you may have. Next slide. Hang on. In the interest of time, I do have a lot of information to present, but I do have a video that I'd like to start things off. It is titled "How Your Property Tax are Calculated Based on Your Property Assessment." So I'll play that. So this video is just part of one of our strategy campaign to help educate the property owner on different or on the relationship between property assessment and taxation. It can be located on our website, but it was also part of our tools and toolkits that we provided to municipality. And really, it's just to help municipalities to, mitigate misinformation and provide support and resources to educate and inform the property. Next slide, please. So I'd just like to begin with who is MPAC, and we see ourselves as Ontario property experts, and our job is to assess and classify more than 5.5 million properties across the province. And we normally do this every 4 years, but that has been postponed by the provincial government, which I'll talk a bit further in my presentation. But that 5.5 million properties, a combined value of close to $3 trillion. In the past year, we saw Ontario grow by approximately 100,000 new homes, 100,000 new properties. And just in 2022, we added approximately $37 billion to the assessment roll, which included close to $497 million just here in Northeastern Ontario. Every municipality will use impacts assessments to make some informed decision about their community, but most importantly, to help them distribute their property taxes. So the Ontario property tax system and these assessments will generate approximately $30 billion in tax revenue. Next slide, please. So to put this into context, there are 4 key players in the Ontario property assessment and taxation, and they all have different roles and interests in the process. The provincial government, specifically the Minister of Finance, is responsible for setting the assessment and taxation legislation as well as policies. They will set the education tax rate, but they also oversee an independent body that adjudicates appeals for impacts assessment, and we know them as the Assessment Review Board and the ARB. MPAC's an independent non-for-profit corporation. We're funded by all Ontario municipalities, and our role is to accurately assess and classify all properties in the province, and we do that through the compliance of our Assessment Act, Impact Act, and other regulations that are set by the province. Municipalities will determine their budgets, set the tax rate, collect property taxes, to help pay for their services such as your road, fire, water, sewage, and among other things. And that's really done through the compliance of your municipal act and many other laws and regulations set by the province. In that same role, municipalities will use impacts assessments to establish their tax rates, to distribute their tax requirement to the ratepayer. And finally, we have the property owner who pays the property tax bill, but they also set market value through the ongoing purchases of property and sale. Next slide, please. So for property assessment, monitoring the market, assessing newly built and renovated properties are things that MPAC does every day to make sure that our property data stays current. But we also periodically update every single property on Ontario based on the same legislative valuation date, and that's what we call an assessment update, or often referred to as a reassessment. The valuation date for the most recent assessment update took effect in January 1st, or took effect in 2017, and that valuation date was January 1st of 2016. So this is when we determined what every single property in Ontario could have reasonably sold in a state and condition at a particular point in time. Regular reassessments are important. They make sure that properties stay up to date in the market, but it also makes sure that the similar properties and similar value in the same community pay similar property taxes. Provincial legislation will determine when MPAC conducts each property-wide reassessment, but they also set the valuation date for each updated cycle. So that is what MPAC is currently waiting from the provincial government right now, is when will we be able to conduct that next property-wide reassessment. Next slide. So the reassessment that was scheduled to occur in 2020, for those who don't know, was postponed by the provincial government to provide certainty and stability to Ontarians, but it was really also to help municipalities respond to the challenges of the pandemic at the time. So as a result, property assessment continued to be based on a valuation date of January 1st, 2016, and will continue to be for the 2023 taxation year. When the next assessment update will be announced by the province, MPAC will engage with you and have those meaningful conversation on what it means for the community. and also support you through that change. And, although the assessment update is remained paused, our work still continues to make sure that our data stays current and that we're in a strong position to deliver the next assessment update when we're called upon. Next slide, please. So while we wait for the next assessment update, we are continuously updating our data to make sure that your tax files are updated and so that you can make your important tax decisions. And we do that through many ways. That could be through inspecting, assessing newly built and renovated and addition properties promptly. We'll review all property sales and monitor your sale trends within your municipality, process severances and your consolidations, address requests for reconsideration in the appeals, and also track your student support. In addition to that, we continue to support our stakeholders by responding to inquiries from property owners and making sure they understand their property assessment notices, their evaluation, and also supporting municipalities through the ongoing support and offering Municipal Connect, which is an online website to municipalities where they can obtain their primary source of assessment related information, and also working collaboratively with municipalities on projects that are important to you. So whether that's starting a new program or trying to digitize your building permits, MPAC is always trying to provide that added value if we can. Next slide. I also wanted to emphasize the importance of MPAC's role through the building permit process. A lot of property owners and municipalities will ask how does MPAC, draw their attention to a specific property, given that there's 5.5 million in the province. And we really do draw our attentions to triggers, and triggers do help us prioritize our work. And so some of these triggers could be a sale, it could be a request from a municipality or a property owner, it could be a request for reconsideration or appeal, but one of the biggest triggers is the building permit activity. There are many, and they do let MPAC know when a property owner is making a change to a property, and it also gives us that opportunity to verify that information when we're there. Our role is really to take building permits and your plans and turn them what we call into new assessment. And we know that municipalities depend on MPAC to levy their property taxes, so that the faster we can deliver new assessment to municipalities, the faster you can realize new revenue. Next slide, please. So I just wanted to talk about CVA, which is current value assessment. There's oftentimes a confusion between a sale price and current value assessment. In the Ontario property tax system, it's based on everyone's paying their fair share for the services that they receive in their community. And to do this, all properties are assigned with a value with a common valuation date, and this principle is called current value assessment. The definition through the Assessment Act of current value assessment is the price that property might reasonably be expected to sell for if it's sold by a willing seller to a willing buyer after an appropriate time and exposure on the open market through a common valuation date. And that's always legislated by the government. Sale prices, where property owners often can get confused, the sale prices are sales that occur every day, every week, every month through the year. They come with a lot of negotiation. They might have a lot of properties within one sale, and there could be some conditions, etc. Whereas current value assessment is a assigned value based on a common valuation comprised of those sales. Next slide, please. This slide just really shows what happens when there's an assessment update that is called. It's really the 4 years that we go through. We're typically reassess every property every 4 years, but that hasn't been the case since the pandemic. This really slide would show you the valuation date chosen by the province, the notice that MPAC would mail to the property owners, and then the phase in which we're bringing the new assessed value into effect over a 4-year period. So the phase-in program was introduced by the province, and that was to provide additional tax stability and predictability, so that when properties experiencing market increase in assessed value between assessment and update, their increase is phased in gradually over 4 years. Any property owner who sees a decrease through an assessment update would be applied in its first year of that phase, and it continues to stay the same in the next Next slide. My next two slides, I'm gonna just talk a bit briefly on the three approaches to value. There are three industry-wide standardized approaches in the province. There is the direct comparison approach, the income and cost. The direct comparison approach is primarily used for residential and condos and vacant land. And really that's basically that's by using recent sales of comparable properties. And we will analyze that to provide an assessment value to each of the property. In addition to that, impact through the analysis of that, we look at a lot of different different components or different ways of looking. There's almost 200 factors of evaluating, but there's 5 of them that will determine approximately 85% of the value of your home. And that is the location it is, where it is, the lot dimension, square footage, quality of construction, and age of property. Income approach is just the ability to earn revenue tied to the real estate and not necessarily the business that you'd be running from it. And so this method requires an analysis of the income, the expenses for both the property being valued and other similar properties, and that's really to determine how much a property could expect it to generate if it's sold in the open market. And lastly is the cost approach. And this are really for properties that rarely sell in the market. They're unique, and we cannot depend on direct comparison or the income approach. And so it's just a lack of data. So there's 3 ways of doing that. We just look at, we calculate the cost of replacing those buildings, structures, or any other fixtures that are on there. And then we'll apply a deduction of depreciation based on their age, or also if there's any functional or economic obsolescence on the building. And lastly, we'll value the land through the direct comparison approach, put all that together to determine the value of those types of properties. Okay. A good example of that would be like a mine with unique buildings for unique reasons that would not sell in the open market for. Next slide, please. I decided to add this slide for this council tonight because there are a lot of farms in Black River, Madison, and we've seen an increase over the years. They're very unique to evaluate. They're different classifications done as well. And so when we look at farms, we look at several components. We will look at the farm land, whether it's a residential home or and 1 acre associated to it. Look at all the outbuildings like the barns or any additional building that will establish property. And through these components, there are different ways that we will use approaches to value. For example, the farmland, we will use a direct comparison approach. We will look at sales of farms that were sold to farmers. And we will also classify the land from 1 to 6 based on its productive capability. 1 being a good piece of land, where 6 doesn't produce as much farming. Residents, we will use the cost approach, so replacement cost less depreciation as well as the land. Your farm outbuilding is the same, but we use an agriculture cost approach, and that's the same process. And we'll look at other buildings and whatever use of it. Some farmers may use it to produce or sell farm goods, and those are other things that we may have to look at and how we approach the value of them. For the tax classification, that is another unique thing for farms. By default, MPAC does classify farm property residential. Unless the property owner has been approved with the farm tax rate program with Agricor. And if they're approved through that criteria, MPAC will put the farmland and outbuildings, like your barns, for example, through that tax class, which is 25% of your residential tax class. If the farmer lives on the farm, the residential home and 1 acre of land will stay in the residential class. And if maybe the farmer is producing or selling farm goods, they might be classified in commercial industrial as well. So a good example I've used in other council is that you may have a farmer who has a lot of farm land. outbuildings that would qualify in the farm tax class. If the farmer lives there, it would be in the residential tax class in this residential home. But let's say this farmer is producing maybe cheese. That production would fall within the industrial class, but that the farmer at the same time is selling that cheese for maybe a storefront, that portion it would be commercial. So there's a lot of different classes that a farmer could fall in within the time classification. Next slide, please. Resolving assessment concerns. So after impact assesses a property or make any changes to an assessment, we mail a property notice to the property. And sometimes the property owner may disagree with their value of their property. And as a member of council, they may come to you and let you know that. I just want to make sure that, oftentimes it can be mixed up between an assessment and a tax bill. So that's always important to remember. And, there's always questions we can ask the owner. If they think they could sell their property on January 1st, 2016, and he says value. Or if maybe they visit aboutmyproperty.ca, which is an online website where property owners can actually verify what impact has on the file on their property and whether or not it's correct. Or they can also use our comparable tool, where they can compare their home to their neighbors, their neighborhood, their community, and see whether or not they feel that their home is comparable. And if they still disagree with their value, they can always file a request for reconsideration. MPAC will review at no charge, or they can even file an appeal with assessment review board. The quickest way is to file a request for reconsideration with MPAC. They can do that through aboutmyproperty.ca or our website. But if the owner doesn't have access to the internet or computer, they can always call our customer contact center and we'd be happy to begin that process.
Mario, could I interrupt you for just 1 second? The CEO has a question.
Mario, more of asking you for a clarification for council on the farm buildings, the outbuildings. Can you explain the obsolescence factor that at times gets applied to those buildings?
Yeah, so that is through the agriculture cost manual, and that was really pushed for, we see a lot of older outbuildings that are out there, and so to promote farming and the outbuildings that were out there, that there's a 50% obsolescence on just outbuildings. Those would be your barns and other buildings that would consider that as your outbuilding.
And Mario, would they, if the farmer built a brand new barn, 50% obsolescence also be applied in that case?
It depends what the barn is doing. I would imagine it's, I'm not 100% sure if it's brand new built. I think it is still applied. But again, if the barn is maybe producing, we've seen that in the past, they're producing cheese or etc., then there would be an industrial class to that.
Yeah, no, I understand that. It was more of replacing like for like, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
thank you. I appreciate that.
Next slide, please. For my next couple of slides, I really just want to talk about or address the relationship between property taxes and assessment. There are oftentimes misconception of what it means to have an assessment update. As you can see on this slide, for the property tax rate, the calculation is straightforward. It is the assessment times the tax rate equal to taxes paid. Therefore, for the overall amount municipalities must collect in taxes, it's always based on the predetermined budget. MPAC's assessment, even through an assessment update, will help distribute that amount, but they do not determine the taxes paid. Next slide, please. So one of the key messages that we've been pushing out with respect to strategic campaign or communication strategic campaign with our property owners is when a province-wide assessment update occurs, the most important factor is not how much the assessed value of a property has changed, but rather how the assessed value has changed relatively to the average change in that class, in that community. So what this slide is really presenting to you was really the same as the video at the beginning. Assuming your municipality has a 0% increase in levy, there's an assessment update, and let's say the average change of your municipality is increasing by 25%. By regulation, the municipality would have to decrease their tax rate And in fact, these property owners are most likely going to see no changes to their taxes. If the property owners are seeing an increase above the average change of your municipality, so they saw an increase of maybe 45, 50%. These are the property owners who are most likely going to see an increase in taxes. And those that saw an increase, but they're below the average, so maybe they saw just a 15%. These property owners are in fact going to see a decrease in property taxes, as long as the total amount collected from the municipality equals to your predetermined budget. Okay. So property assessments are really, even through an assessment of it, is simply just a distribution mechanism. It will not determine your taxes paid. Next slide. So in the anticipation of next project-wide assessment update, we have implemented a strategy to address those misconceptions, like the video I showed you at the beginning, and many other myths and busts that we do online through our Facebook page, etc. We've also included those resources through a municipal toolkit that we provided to municipalities last year. They could be for municipalities as well as we as elected officials. And again, as I mentioned at the beginning of the presentation, it's just to help mitigate that misinformation and provide support and resources to educate and inform the property owner. Next. So that is it for me. So thank you for having me, and I would hope you can stay connected. We also have an In Touch newsletter that we deliver on a monthly basis. It's through it can be emailed to you through your email. So if you're interested, it's a lot of good information, and so you can subscribe on our website. We also have a great digital resource page on our website if there's information you want to provide to the municipality. But also, if you please be sure to reach out to me anytime if you have any questions. Always happy to help, and if you need additional resources, I'm here to help. So thank you.
Mario, on behalf of council, thank you very, very much for your very informative presentation.
Yes.
And before you take off, if you don't mind, does any of the councils have any questions for Mario? Direct questions? Seeing none, must mean you did your job very well, Mario. Thank you very much. You're more than welcome to sit around and listen to us, or if you wish and you need to get going, that's fine too. Thank you very much, Mario. Appreciate it. I'm sure we'll be in touch.
Thank you.
Move on into new business. And I'm gonna need a mover and a seconder again. And I've got Councillor Drewer and Councillor Gaddis again.
Moved by Councillor Drewer, seconded by Councillor Gattary. Whereas the Municipal Act, Section 225, subsection B, provides that it is the role of the head of council to represent the municipality at official functions. And whereas the Municipal Act, Section 229, provides that the chief administrative officer shall be responsible for exercising general control and management of the affairs of the municipality and performing such other duties as assigned by the municipality. And whereas the media is integral for municipal communications and representation by the head of council in official correspondence. Be it resolved that council authorizes the CAO in his unfettered discretion in exercising their duties to prepare and compose media correspondence on behalf of the head of council, and that the head of council will review and authorize the final correspondence prior to media release.
Mover and seconder, do they have any questions or concerns? Councillor Drewer? No. Councillor Gaddary? No. Any other councillor have any questions or concerns? If not, all those in favor of the motion? Seeing no objections, carried. And I guess then we get to go into our reports area. 8A is we have our statement of remuneration report. We need to move in a second again, right?
Yes.
Move in a second, Councillor DeMarchi and Councillor Neal.
Was moved by Councillor DeMarchi and seconded by Councillor Neal. Whereas the Municipal Act, Section 284, subsection 1, provides that the treasurer of the municipality on or before March 31st provide to council an itemized statement of remuneration and expenses paid in the previous year Therefore, be it resolved that council receive report DTM 2023-03 statement of remuneration as information.
All those in favor of the resolution? Carried. Seeing no objections, carried. Thank you, Madam Clerk. Now we just have a motion to receive the report, right?
So it's actually the fire department.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
So then we're gonna go into 8B. We got a fire department year end and January monthly reports. And. I didn't see him. You know, mover to seconder. Moved by Councillor Drewer and seconded by Councillor Gatherer.
Moved by Councillor Drewer, seconded by Councillor Gattery, that council receive fire department report FC 2022-13 and FC 2023-10 as information.
Any councillors? Yes, Councillor Diamond.
Just a clerical point, thank you, Mr. Mayor, is it's FC 2023-01.
Thank you, Councillor Diamond. Somebody's got to keep an eye on Cassie. Thank you.
No, we put those in there.
Just to check and see if we're paying attention. Thank God somebody did, eh? Thank you.
Well, we know David now, he pays attention all the time.
There you go. And does anybody have any questions for the fire chief regarding the report? Any comments? Yes, Councillor Markey?
I just like the development. Great job again.
It's the team. Thank you.
And thank you. No other comments from councilors. I just wanted to make one comment myself and just wanted to thank Chief Lamb for doing a good job of keeping the fire department running. And I noted how much of a challenge it is to maintain firefighters in regards to the amount of training and stuff that's being forced upon everybody. And it is greatly appreciated. And thank you very much on behalf of the municipality. And Chief Lamb, would you like to say a few words to council regarding your report or not? Your choice.
Looking for volunteer firefighters.
I keep stealing them, making them counselors.
I see that. Still got one active.
So, and there's nothing further from Chief Lamb and nothing further from council, I'll have the clerk. Where do we go here? So, I guess all those in favor of the report. Seeing no objections, carried. And some more housekeeping. We're going to go into the report, the Roma report, right? So we need a mover and a seconder for that. We got Councillor Neal and Councillor Drewer.
Moved by Councillor Neal, seconded by Councillor Drewer, that council receive report Roma 2023 from Mayor Bender as information.
And my only comment to it was that's the same report that was distributed at the end of our last meeting, and I think we discussed it at length, but if anybody has any further questions for me, I'd be pleased to answer them. Yes, Councilor Neal.
Your worship, I just have a few questions. Appreciate this, but again, I was just thinking, I was looking at the report, and so there's three things that kind of came to mind as far as for clarification. So again, it's mentioned when you met with the Roma Board of Zone Candidates that there were needs were identified in the meeting. Again, can you clarify what needs were identified in the meeting?
You mean as far as the needs of what their needs were, or what their needs that they suggested were required?
Again, sorry, it's mentioned here, attended Roma Board Zone Candidate sessions to understand where the various candidates stood on needs best related to ours. I'm just wondering what was mentioned there that would kind of relate to us.
And actually, there's actually 2 points I probably want to highlight, which helped me to make my decision. Number one was the candidate that actually won is one of his biggest concerns and something he's been cheerleading and being heavily involved in is the 2+1 highway safety process. which is he's finally actually convinced the provincial government to do a trial down in the Temagami area. And so obviously, he made it very clear that his interest in highway safety kind of aligned with my own and hopefully everybody else's. And the other point that came up is there were some of the other candidates, actually, the majority of the candidates were from the southern region of our zone 9, which is the North Bay Mattawa area. And actually was pointed out to me by at least one of the other candidates that they wanted to see that representation move farther north, so it was closer to our own area and values. And those are basically my main points on those.
Okay, the second one, just again for information's sake, you had a meeting with Vic Fideli. I was thinking, I just put down what tangible information was gained that we are now in the process, like moving forward. Was there anything that we gained from that? I know there's, again, the discussion was had, the presentation was made, but is there any sort of actions that have come out of that meeting that are moving us forward?
Not as of yet. The CEO and I have had discussions regarding some of the items that Vic and Minister Fideli, I should say, discussed in the hallway. I always call him Vic because Vic and I go along with our counselor or Minister Fideli goes way back in my history with us, so we've become friends, which is why whenever I have an opportunity to speak to Minister Fideli, I take every opportunity. As a matter of fact, I've actually escalated part of our presentation that we made at Roma, that Chris and I made at Roma, through Minister Fideli's office, and we'll see where everything goes. But Minister Fideli has made it very clear that he's there for Black River Matheson whenever we can show our needs make sense to economic development, which is his portfolio. And he's assured me that even though he's the MPP for North Bay, he considers himself the MPP for all of Northern Ontario, along with Minister Peary and Minister Rickford, that's out in the Kenora, and which they've all reiterated the same thing to me, and that's basically where that was at. I was just wanted to make note to council that when you go to these things and you get the opportunity, it's amazing what can happen in the hallway. And like I mentioned to Minister Fideli that the CEO and I had discussions regarding an industrial park and some other activity that would be involved in that and may require some government support. Well, not may, well, and he reiterated that he'd actually either his staff or himself had actually spoke to the CEO about that earlier, and that there is definitely money there for that actual thing to happen.
And my last question again, which kind of relates a little bit to the second one. I just put down like what concrete items had moved forward because of the conference. I always think about if we're going to conferences, we're getting the bang for the buck, right? Exactly. So I think the meeting with Fideli was great, but I'm just wondering, was there any other things that have sort of that's actually concrete? Like I look if we're getting for grants or whatever items that could be given. Is there something that actually was concrete that came out of it?
I personally, I'd say there's 2 or 3 things. Number one is definitely strengthened our own relationship within our region with the other municipal leaders, which of course we do on a regular basis, whether it's, as I'm going to mention in my Neoma report, but obviously that happens at every one of these conferences. But the biggest 2 items in my shape or my theory is our delegation to the Ministry of Finance, which was received well, but hasn't turned out as well as we hoped as of yet. But that and by adding to that previous relationships that I've had to be able to bring that subject forward through other methods, and that's part of that process that happened at Roma.
Okay, appreciate that. Thank you very much.
Any other questions? Yes, Chris.
A couple of things for the Councilor Neil with respect to Roma. So Roma, I spent 4 years on Roma, and when I first got on the board there was one representative for all of Northern Ontario. So think as you cross the French River all the way up to Kenora. And as a board, we agreed to split Northern Ontario in 2, northwest, northeast, which really it should be, because the thinking and the settlement patterns for both of those locations are much different. And that worked out well. The problem was that the representative that was representing Northern Ontario and then Northeastern Ontario was not necessarily engaged with anybody. And so with this election, Councillor Mark Wilson was elected to the Northeast, which is really good. And that already indicated something that he's done. But the nice thing about this, he's reached out to me to say, listen, I'm new to this Roma thing. If I need any information, can I chat with you or whatever? Yeah, absolutely. So we've made that connection with Councillor Wilson, and hopefully that will help. And of course, being on Timiskaming Shores Council there, Councillor Danny Whalen, he's the president of Phenom. So there's another good connection as well. So some of those things are sort of germane, right? That you have to let them grow, but I think this will prove us very well.
So if there's no other questions, then I would just ask for a show of hands in favor to approve the motion. Seeing no objections, carried. And I guess the next thing is I have my verbal reports. Correct?
Yes, Mr. Mayor. Yes.
So my next items was regarding my attendance at the recent Neoma meeting up in Valrita Hardy. And the one item that I'm gonna mention right off the bat, since it's fresh in everybody's mind, we're just talking about office space and so on and so forth. I'm amazed at what that little community has done for their own community hub. And I don't know if anybody was actually familiar with it, but back in the day, the school board had tried to get council here to share the public school because they weren't using enough of it, but their process, or the plan they had left us with, I was on council at that time, and it left us with concerns because the cost of renovations, the cost of maintenance, the cost of an agreement like a lease arrangement and sharing the facility with a school, it just left us with a very awkward situation, which I guess left us with the situation that we have now with our new building. But Valrita Hardy, they had a small school alongside the highway, not large like this one, but the school board up there actually closed the school. So I don't know what arrangements were actually made, but Valrita Hardy ended up with the old school. And they got some government funding and they renovated it into a beautiful facility. They've got ample office space for all their staff. They've got an area that they actually rent out for community events in there. Beautiful council chambers. They've actually got a fitness area right in the same building, and they actually have like a crafts room for seniors. They've done just a fantastic job. And when we talk about financing and those type of things that our treasurer has brought to our attention over time, they made it very clear, like in Valrita Hardy, whenever they raise taxes 1%, that gives them a total of $10,000. Here, 1% is what, excuse me, 40,000, approximately 40,000. So as much as we find our situation tough sometimes, a little town like community like that, and I'm sure they don't have the network of roads that we have. They do have roads, but I'm sure they don't have some of the expenses that we deal with. But it is amazing to see what a little rural community like that on Highway 11 has been able to accomplish. I was very impressed. That was one thing to come out of there. The more important items was we had a really good update by the Northern Immigration Director. That's in regards to, I guess it's a program that's being run out of the City of Timmins Economic Development Corporation, or running through them. They're basically looking after immigration for Northern and Northeastern Ontario for like say whether it's a small, like a business that requires employees or even a municipality that requires employees like us. They actually have a database of people that want to immigrate to the area or into Canada are willing to come to this area that actually can be helped through the process by that program that's running out of the Economic Development Corporation in Timmins. And I know Chris is fully familiar with them.
Hanji's
And Hanji's even more familiar. I don't know.
committee, right, Hanji? Or RNEP?
Yeah, we just had a meeting today, actually.
So maybe you can tell council more than I can, Hanji, on that particular. But did I explain it well enough or?
Yeah, it's basically it's a process through Ottawa. so that residents can, that are working for businesses already can get permanent residency in Canada. But there's a lot of rules, regulations to it, so you can't just apply, you have to go through a process and you get scored based on community involvement, long-term job expectancy, if you're gonna stay in the area. We want to make sure that the people that are approved through the process are actually going to stay in Northern Ontario, because that's the whole point of our. If people are going to take it for residency and move somewhere else, we want to catch that, because that will go against their scoring process. And we've approved over 150 as of today. The program only started back in last September, and we approved another 14 as of today's meeting.
Thanks, Hanji. That's good. It's good. That gives me some more information. Didn't realize you're involved in that. Thank you. And regarding the rest of it is we also had a Northeastern Community Network update regarding the Clay Belt Ag Development, which is very similar to what we had here at our last council meeting, where they came in and basically explained what they're the process for developing Crown land or getting Crown land into the thing. But anyway, it was an excellent discussion where, of course, now we have every municipality in Northeastern Ontario with municipal, I think that the comment was made here that there was some municipalities had some concerns regarding how this agricultural development on Crown land was going to impact forestry or mining. And that was explained again. And actually, the mayor of Hearst was there, the mayor of Kapuskasing and some of these other places that also rely on the forestry industry. And they also had their concerns, and it was a pretty good discussion amongst the mayors. And there was CAOs and so on and so forth, but there was a very good discussion about the whole project. And I think after it was over, I think everybody came away with a little better feeling about the actual goals and objectives. And I believe during that session we had here, they had talked about a letter of intent that they wanted us to sign. And basically all they really want is just, it's basically all they're even looking for is just even a simple email as a letter of support for the plan, not saying that we're signing on and agreeing to doing the whole project, just that everybody has understood what their plan is and that we actually think it's a good one. That was part of it. There was a big chat about the same thing we've done here and we've talked about a few times is housing shortages and the different ideas different municipalities have in regards to that. And some of the ideas that I've discussed with Chris, I think I even brought to their attention regarding modular homes and placing them in municipal settings and so on and so forth. And they like the idea and they've had some of their own. There was also an interesting discussion about the TDH and how they set up appointments for the MRI up there. How they're saying that a lot of residents are getting these notifications saying they got an MRI appointment at 2:30 in the morning and so on and so forth. And people everybody is concerned. They don't want to turn down an opportunity for an appointment because they figure if they say no, they're not going to get another one. But that's incorrect. It was brought back that any resident gets a call saying that their MRI appointment has been booked for the middle of the night. In Northeastern Ontario, they can make a realistic request for a daytime appointment, and the TDH is required underneath the process to try to accommodate. Can't guarantee it every time, but people need, especially some of the elderly residents that need to know that they need to go for an MRI, that there is an opportunity, not to have a big battle or a fight, but just to request a different appointment and that it should be considered each and every time. So everybody needs to know that. And that was a good point. There was an awfully good discussion regarding things that I'm gonna reiterate about here, or we've had long discussions about regarding healthcare attraction and retention. So there was lots of discussion about that and how each community is handling it. I mean, we've already had that long discussion and we brought some of it forward, but it was interesting. I mean, nobody has a magic wand approach. Everybody has a little different approach, but they're all looking for the same thing as we are. Everybody's fighting for that same small pool of doctors and nurses. And everybody did agree that no matter what we do, whether it's housing or healthcare or education, or that the regional approach is the one that will work best for us. And everybody agreed at that meeting that everybody had to continue communicating and working together and not spending all of our energies trying to fight each other for, you know, whether it's for that nurse or that doctor or whatever, we got to work together to try to help each other, which was good. And the last thing on Neoma that I wanted to mention is the next meeting is in Timmins on April the 26th, if you want to put it into your own calendars. Because since it's in Timmins, it's only an hour away and it might give everybody an opportunity to go to Neoma. It's definitely a worthwhile session to attend in my estimation, because you're ending up networking with all of the rest of the regional leaders, councillors, CEOs throughout northeastern Ontario. And it's good to meet these people and you have lots of time to talk and chat and actually do business. So I just wanted to highlight that for council. And then I'll move on. We're just going to do one resolution for the whole thing.
So, Mr. Mayor, there is no resolution. You're just giving verbal report
Okay.
right now.
Okay. So the next item is I want to talk about was DSAB. And I finally got to go to my first meeting. And had my first meeting, of course, the start of it was an orientation with the CEO or CAO, Brian Marks of DSAB. So we had and he put me through the process to explain to me what DSAB's role and how the legislation works and all the rest. It was very, very interesting, very informative, very educational. And I also was able to have a couple of chats during that orientation with Brian Marks regarding possibilities of DSAB even getting involved even here in Black River Madison regarding housing, as far as outside of the normal housing that we normally think of being geared to income. Like he explained to me very clearly, like our seniors buildings in all the communities and our other buildings that are housing units in the different communities. The older ones are all geared to income, and that was part of the legislation. And that was the process. But he's also explaining any new housing development that's done now doesn't have to be geared to income. It can be based on market value. So if there's a need for housing that we need some help from DSAB with, they're willing to actually invest in the community. Of course, they're probably reinvesting our dollars that we're giving them, but we might as well get something from them. And the other point another thing that was brought up during the meeting, or one of the big things that was discussed during the meeting was daycare or you know, like the childcare. And they talked about the number of childcare spaces that they had throughout the different 13 municipalities that are part of our CDSAB. And right now there's more spaces than applicants of children, but the problem is actually, sorry, that's not quite right. Actually, what the biggest problem is there's not enough staff to actually fill to fill all of those daycare positions that are supposedly there. The positions are shown as being there, but there's not enough staffing in place to allow those positions to be filled. And the discussion came up there very clearly. The same thing as Chris had mentioned to me the other day, is the main reason they're having trouble filling all those staffing positions is mostly is salaries. And it was actually brought forward that I guess the CDSAB rate for most of these early childhood education and daycare positions is somewhere in the area, I believe, of $18 an hour. And actually the ones that are handled through the schools and so on and so forth, I think there's something like $28 an hour. There's such a discrepancy that obviously they can't get enough people to take the lower paying jobs. And so there's going to be some work done towards trying to find a way to get some balance in that, so that those staffing requirements can be looked after and we can get some more daycare positions. And actually, Chris was also informing me that as a municipality, correct me if I'm wrong, Chris, but I think we're actually contributing something like $45,000 a year to DSAB for childcare. Is that correct?
It's 47.
47,000. There's an extra 2,000 just wow. But anyway, we're spending contributing something like $47,000 towards daycare spacing for Black River Madison, and we really don't have any. Or am I wrong there?
No, you're correct.
We really don't have any daycare spaces here. So obviously the next meeting, I'm going to be trying to get there a little early and have a little chat with the CAO up there and just saying, look, there's some things here we need to get looked at and fixed and I mean, if necessary, I'll bring it up in the open board meeting. But I usually find that usually you get more of a sugar than you know what else, but the thing is, it's usually better to meet one-on-one and try to work things out instead of having some kind of a battle. And the chair of our CDSAB is actually the mayor of Timmins, Michelle Boileau, and she runs a very fine meeting. I'm looking up to Michelle when it comes to running a meeting, which is why I made those comments there last week. And what else did I have? It was DSAB, it was important.
Representation.
Pardon me?
Talk about the representation,
You mean as far as,
the balance of power.
oh, well, of course, yeah, I think most councils aware, but there's 13 municipalities that are part of CDSAB. And right now, the city of Timmins has 60% of the votes. Now, the other thing that I understand, and I'm not 100% sure, but possibly, well, I'm sure Cassandra will tell us the truth, even if Chris can or can't. But my understanding, though, is the city of Timmins is also required to pay 60% of the budget or something close to it.
I don't believe that. Sorry, if I could.
No, yes, please.
The budget number is based on weighted assessment. There's a calculation for that. It has nothing to do with that. When the DSAB Act was put in place, it gave they had all these DSABs and they said, okay, you figure out how your representation is going to work. So for example, I came from the Algoma district. The most number of votes on that board was a city of Elliott Lake, who had 4. But they did not have the balance of power. Everybody else could have outvoted them, right? And that happened quite often. So I remember Peter Paulides, when he was the mayor the first time around in Cochrane, he had a huge fight in the media with Steve Black, who was the mayor of Timmins at the time, about that representation issue. Because effectively, Timmins has everybody else. The other folks, if they disagreed, even if everybody voted negative, Timmins has 60% of the vote. And therefore, that's why a lot of stuff happens the way it does. And I agree with Mayor Paulides. That's not fair. It's not fair that we just have to continue to pay and we don't have the opportunity to debate issues fairly. I mean, that would be like council having 3 people and everybody just, blocks together and makes that vote. It doesn't make any sense. It's wrong. It's not democratic at all.
And I definitely agree with that perception. But my only comment is I think it's going to be my job or my role in this case to find a way to work with the majority of those members. It's from the city of Timmins or all the outlying communities to try and get things done within our community if we want to see things actually happening here, because Chris is right. Right now, most of the activity that you see CDSAB involved in is happening within the city of Timmins boundaries, because obviously over the years they've had control of the board, basically. So when you have control of the voting, you can probably get more things done. But I think it's going to be my role and my responsibility to make sure that I work with those other smaller municipalities. And if we work as a group, and there is at least 2 or 3 of the councillors from the city of Timmins that I know personally and know very well, that I know I can work with, and we can make some things happen. Probably easier than trying to get the board ratios changed. I don't even know if there's a way to do it. Yes, Councilman.
Your worship, what's the length of, are they appointed or is that by election to be on DSAB?
It's appointed.
And what's the length of term?
Same as council.
Same as council.
Actually, it extends for appointed council members. I'm sorry, I'm incorrect. It goes to December 31st of the year of the election, the next election. So it goes, there's a lot of councils that are back and forth when they appoint folks. Some, like we were December 7th or whatever it was. So our previous DSAB appointee was Councillor Barber. So she went till the end of December.
But it's a very interesting process. I mean, obviously, you're talking about geared income housing, seniors housing, daycare. You're also talking about Ontario Works. So there's a lot of different information there that we can actually, I think, engage in and actually leverage for the community. And it's as I become more familiar with all the different individuals that are part of the CDSAB organization, I can see some ideas that there are some things that maybe we can move forward. And I would definitely say that if councillors have ideas and thoughts about whether it's housing ideas or seniors ideas or daycare ideas or whatever, bring them to me and I'll bring them forward at the board. And the other item I was going to talk on, speak on is on the agenda tonight is. It's just regarding what we've shown as being the March break bus. And just to bring council up to speed on what that was, I had actually approached management earlier on. When actually Councillor Rondo had actually brought forward the idea of getting the outdoor rinks going again. And of course, when I had the initial discussion with Chris and Cassandra, of course, found out there was zero money placed in the budget by the last council for the outdoor rinks. And for whatever, I mean, obviously, there was financial crunches or whatever consideration, but there was zero money for the budget year of 2022, which meant there was no money to pay anybody to go and start the ice or to do anything. And then obviously, with the weather that we've seen this year, it wasn't very conducive to getting anything done. And by the time we got to January, where we could actually start looking at putting money in the budget to do it, the length of time that was left and the weather conditions that we had just weren't conducive to opening them. And actually, the other point that I wanted to mention is that the other reason that came with it, I didn't even bring it back to council, is Chris had actually had our recreation staff go and do an inspection, a visual inspection of the outdoor rinks. And there wasn't one of them that was physically ready to be opened due to repairs that were required. And again, repairs cost money, and the middle of the winter is not the time to be fixing boards. But anyway, that's just, and because of that, I had suggested that maybe we look at doing a bus from the outlying communities during the March break, so we could bring kids, bring people in to utilize the arena bar. And actually, Chris and Cassandra had actually reached out to our recreation coordinator, Lisa, to look into the costing or the thoughts of doing a bus. And actually Lisa came back with lots of good information, and actually the costing of a bus, but it was basically, the recommendation was basically a bus for a day to service the outlying communities into town. But it was going to be in relationship to a promote, or like a day that Lisa was going to coordinate for an activity day for the March break, during the March break. And the cost was just under $600 for the day, which wasn't terrible cost. But also, I was also informed that I guess Lisa's reached out to the different communities and found out there was very little interest in people using a bus. So spending money on a bus, we don't want to have a bus driving around empty or with one or two people on it. I mean, if people really want to go to something, I think we're probably better, if we're going to do anything with money, is to give some more money to the recreation coordinator to actually do a program, so that if there's a need or a requirement there. But anyway, I just wanted, that was my comments on the bus. I just wanted to bring everybody up to speed on what that business was about the March break bus. So unless somebody has some other ideas regarding that they think should be looked at differently, that was my comments. And the only other thing since it's not on it,
It's coming up.
oh, it's coming up later, okay. So that's it for my little verbal reports. If there's any questions or concerns. Enough, blah, blah, blah.
Doug? Okay. Your worship. Lisa did a great job on Family Day, and I think Lisa, 200, right? 200 people attended with the partnership with the Agricultural Society. So Lisa's done a good job of trying to rekindle people thinking towards recreation. Recreation is,
Thanks, Lisa.
it's not just sports, right? There's other recreational things that can happen too. So, and that's what we heard from a number of council members, is that you wanted to see that happen. And so Lisa's done a really good job thus far in doing that. We hope to continue.
Yes, Councillor Drew.
Through your worship, I have spoken with Lisa about maybe not just doing stuff here in Matheson, but we have a hall in Holt and Raymore. There's, and Valganye and Shillington, Raymore, we could do a whole town in Raymore. There's a lot of children there. There's a lot of new families. I've offered to join with her and help plan stuff out there for these kids.
And I like that idea, and I like the enthusiasm of the idea. The only thing is as long as we continue to throw ideas out there without making too many demands, because if there are things that we really want to see happen, we should be coordinating them through the CAO and through the staff. And then back through to Lisa, so Lisa has proper direction, but I agree that the more we can do in every area of the municipality, the better. Any other questions, comments for Lisa, or? And I just wanted to reiterate Chris's comments, because I do apologize, I mentioned your name 2 or 3 times, Lisa, but I didn't put enough emphasis on thanking you for that effort during the family day, because I had lots of positive comments from different people that I've run into in my different social circles that have commented about how much fun the kids had at bingo and trying this and trying that. And of course, they all have their own suggestions, and everybody has their ideas, and I'm sure you've got lots of them, and I'm sure you're gonna get lots more of them. But you know, it's a heck of a good start, and very, very, very grateful that somebody's doing it. And whatever you're doing during the March break, you've got my personal support, and I'm sure council will back you along with, you're gonna get the full support, I'm sure, of management too. There's no motion. Okay, well, I've talked enough on my verbal reports. If nobody else has any more questions. Then we're gonna move into 9A, and we're gonna go into our bylaw section. And we have I need a mover and a seconder, Councillor Drewer and Councillor Neal.
Moved by Councillor Drewer, seconded by Councillor Neal, that bylaw number 2023-16 being a bylaw to provide for remuneration for council employees be read a first, second, and third time and finally passed this 28th day of February 2023.
Yes, Madam Clerk.
Just so council's aware, it's a housekeeping item. At the last meeting, you passed the motion to change the mileage rate. This is just the bylaw mirroring what council had already approved at the last meeting.
Bringing our mileage back in line with gas prices and so on and so forth. Any other questions or concerns regarding it? If not, I'll ask for a vote. All those in favor? Carried. Seeing no objections, carried. And we have another bylaw, right? It's confirmed, right? I need a mover and a seconder again. Councillor DeMarchi and Councillor Gadry.
Moved by Councillor DeMarchi, seconded by Councillor Gadry, that bylaw number 2023-17 being a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of the Council of the Corporation of the Township of Black River Matheson be read a first, second, and third time and finally passed this 28th day of February 2023.
No questions or concerns? All those in favor? Seeing no objections, carried. I guess we can go into unfinished business. So the first item, I need a mover and a seconder, Councillor Drewer, and seconded by Councillor DeMarchi.
Moved by Councillor Drewer, seconded by Councillor DeMarchi, that council appoint the following individuals to the Worker Bee Advisory Committee.
Does anybody wish to entertain the motion, or would anybody need an amendment to this? Did we want to defer, and this would be a good time, I guess, we discuss the whole Worker Bee thing one more time. As I'd reported to council, I believe the last meeting that CAO and myself had met with the CAOs of Iroquois Falls and Cochrane and the 2 mayors from Iroquois Falls and Cochrane. And we had basically agreed that we would have a meeting, one meeting with the existing work or the previous existing Worker Bee committee with the 3 heads of council and the 3 CAOs to basically have a discussion with them to see exactly what they feel they've accomplished and what their goals and objectives were and where they sit with all those. And I know the mayor of Iroquois Falls, his position is he wanted to give the existing worker bees committee an opportunity, the existing one or a new one, the opportunity for a few months to actually produce some results, if there's results to be produced. But it was again at Neoma that I met again with Mayor Politis and Mayor Delorier, and they just wondered if it would still be possible for us to at least entertain having that one meeting with the previous worker bees committee and the three municipalities, just to discuss a direction. And I've made it abundantly clear to both those mayors that this council has no interest of continuing with the worker bees, especially in the present format. But I thought it was fair that we at least do that, like, since money has been spent, whether it's taxpayers' money or whatever, at least have a meeting with the committee to find out exactly what's been accomplished and if there's anything more that's left to be done. And I know, speaking to Chris and Cassandra, there is money in the budget for them to continue for this year anyway, or whatever, I guess they did. And right now, we don't even know if they've moved forward with a new physician recruiter or anything. We've heard nothing. So the only comment I wanted to make was, before I personally, and I should leave it up to council to decide, I was just going to bring it forward that since I know there's at least one or two councilors that are adamant in which direction we're sort of going. So I think we should possibly consider deferring this again one more time until we've had that opportunity to have that meeting, bring that information back to council before we even consider appointing another committee that's just going in circles. Would anybody be willing to move and second an amendment? Councillor Neal and Councillor Diamond. Pardon me?
Who would be attending the meeting?
Well, the old worker bees committee, and I'm not sure who all is involved in there, all the different, I know we've got members from community here and Iroquois Falls, Cochrane. And then it would be myself and Chris would attend, along with the CAO of Iroquois Falls, Mayor Delorier, and the CAO of Cochrane and Mayor Politis. And again, an information session, not something where I'm even going to start to consider committing this council to anything financial. Just getting information. I just wanted to make sure the council was aware of that. And just to be fair to the process and be fair to the fact there's been money spent on something, we should at least know what it's been spent on. So at least if we get that information, at least we have something to come back with.
Thank you. That answers my question.
And we've got our clerk busy writing away here and getting an amendment done for us
Deferred.
to defer appointing a new worker bees committee. And as much as I hate bringing things to the agenda and deferring, I think this is necessary for us to do this for now. Until we have enough information that if anybody wants to change their mind, at least then they have it. And whenever you're ready and you feel that you're complete, Madam Clerk, feel free to read the resolution. No pressure. Another printer, right? At least you can read Cassandra's writing. You can't read my printing.
This is being deferred until you have the meeting, correct? So
Correct.
there's no date.
No, and actually, and that's what I want to also mention to council is the two other mayors suggested that we have that meeting following the March break. So this isn't gonna, I'm not sure if this is even gonna happen before our next meeting. So we won't bring this resolution for the new worker bees committee or finding one back until we've had that meeting. I would believe that would make the most sense instead of going in circles. Feel free, Madam Clerk.
Okay. Wording could be a little,
I'm sure it'll be good for the purposes intended.
okay, so it was moved by Councillor Neal, seconded by Councillor Diamond. That council defer the worker bee committee appointment until the previous committee members and current interested applicants along with the accompanying mayors and CAOs of all three communities, have had the opportunity to meet and discuss the future of the committee mandate.
So suitable for council? Mover and second are happy with those?
Yeah.
Okay. And I'm sure we beat this one to death again, so I'll ask for a vote. All those in favor of the amendment? Seeing no objections, carried. Thanks, guys. The next item we have on our agenda is regarding relocation of council meetings again.
Staff have coined us the Gypsy Council.
I'll ask again for a mover and a second. Moved by Councillor DeMarchi and seconded by Councillor Drewer. And I will ask the clerk to read the motion and then we can have our discussion.
Was moved by Councillor DeMarchi, seconded by Councillor Drewer. That council relocate all future council meetings to the upstairs portion of the new municipal building located at 367 4th Avenue, Matheson, Ontario. And that the following be put into practice in order to successfully transition to the new location. Advise the public that all council and committee meetings are only accessible in real time via internet and telephone. Advertise the YouTube link and telephone number on each public agenda. Advertise to the public the library hours and use of computers for council meeting access. Communicate the weight restrictions of the second level of the municipal building to be transparent to the public for temporary arrangements of online access to council committee meetings in real time. And finally, that this arrangement be noted as temporary in nature until such time the new council chambers is constructed.
And does the mover, does Councillor DeMarchi have any questions regarding this? Or comments?
Maybe we can lease the chambers and Timmins. No, I haven't.
Okay, thank you, Councillor DeMarchi. Councillor Drewer? Any other councillor have any questions, concerns, comments? Yes, Councillor Gary.
I just have concerns. If this were for a couple of months, it wouldn't be too bad, but on a longer term, I feel that the public not being able to attend in person might be, they might not see that very well, like,
They may not take it very well.
that's right. That's something we discuss with the council. We should.
Actually, I was just gonna I was just asking, it wasn't just to have a little private meeting here, but I just asking the clerk, because I wasn't aware. Because in our previous councils, and I'm assuming Councillor Diamond and Councillor DeMarchi, you must have had well, most of yours was during COVID, so you probably had no opportunity. But our previous councils, we used to go to each of the outlying communities at least once during the year,
Once every quarter.
once every quarter. So we'd go to Raymore and Valgagny
And show them.
And Shillington.
and Shillington. I almost forgot about you, Councillor DeMarchi,
We
sorry.
never do that while I'm here.
I was trying. But anyway, is council interested in us going back to that? Like going to different communities and having our meetings out there so that the different communities actually have an opportunity to see council? Like, I know my own opinion. Like, I remember when we used to have our meetings in Raymore and Valgagny and even Shillington to some extent, there was a lot more people showed up at those meetings than ever showed up here at the regular ones. But I mean, and of course, as long as they're advertised properly, and then that would reduce the number of times we have to meet upstairs in the closet.
It's just, I feel people are gonna think we're isolating ourselves and that bothers me.
Trust me, I made that concern abundantly clear today, but at the same time, I also respect the opinions of staff as far as trying to find one location that we can continue to use without having to tear down and set up and so on and so forth. So if we are going to tear down and set up, we might as well maybe be looking at going back to doing our outlying communities, like every quarter.
Yes, Mr. Mayor.
Did we?
Yes, Mr. Mayor.
I didn't realize we went out to those communities that often.
Yes.
So is council interested or entertaining going back to doing that? Yes, Councilman.
Your worship, I'm just thinking about broadcasting on Facebook. Can we do hotspot off of a cell phone? You can still do Facebook via that way at the whole time more or. Like any?
I mean, can we still do this?
Yeah, like these hotspotting, can you do it through hotspotting off the cell phone?
Yes, Sanji?
Through the mayor to council. As far as I know, our cellular network is not, the broadband is not strong enough to support live streaming. We can record and upload the video later, but it would not be live broadcast. We have to have a strong network like we have to with DNet, or we have to have fiber. Cell is not strong.
So I guess council has to consider that too, that the live streaming won't be as possible or wouldn't be practical for the outlying areas due to internet service. But the fact is that we can actually still be doing it at least in person, at least giving the community the opportunity if they wish. Now, I realize it's extra work for staff to do that. And of course, there's some, I don't know, is there cost? I guess we actually rent the halls for those events. Yes, Cass?
So when this was being done, not the last term of council, but the term prior to that, some halls were charging the municipality for the usage.
Yeah, probably Councillor DeMarkey?
Don't we own
Yeah, we own this too.
it? Huh? Different board.
75 bucks.
So do we have to entertain this motion? Yes. Yes, Madam Clerk.
So if that's the wish of council, what I would do is, so you've already passed your yearly council schedule at the beginning of your term. So we would have to amend your yearly council schedule, which can be brought back at your next meeting. And then you can also determine what location you'd like to start at and how often you'd like to go out to these halls. So for this evening, Mr. Mayor,
We'll
if
just deal with this
we'll deal with
resolution.
this, we'll make a note to bring back council's yearly schedule to amend for the next meeting.
So is everybody okay with that for now then? Give the staff time to bring something back so we can deal with it properly. And in the meantime, we're gonna move forward with this resolution then that's been read. Instead of me asking her to reread it, I can actually remember she read it. And although I agree that the location or the room, the facility, you know, based on restrictions and stuff is definitely not perfect. But at least with our virtual technology, anybody that really wants to watch what's going on or see what's going on can do that right from the comfort of their lazy boy. But I do like the idea of us getting back out to the communities. So if, without saying any more, I've said my piece about 10 times, and I apologize. All those in favor of the resolution? Seeing no objections, carried. And we're gonna move into item 11A, under other business. AMO training, navigating conflict relationships as an elected official. Mover and a seconder. I got Councillor Gattery and Councillor Drewer.
Moved by Councillor Gattery, seconded by Councillor Drewer, that council approve of the following individuals to attend the virtual AMO training, navigating conflict relationships on June 14th and 15th, 2023.
And if I understood you correctly, it's all virtual.
I'm just confirming. Yes.
So virtual means that travel costs are pretty limited. So which councillors are willing to have their name attached to this resolution? Who wishes to attend the virtual session? Councillor Gattery? Councillor Drewer? Any others? I mean, obviously, there's no real, I mean, other than, I guess there is a fee to attend, right?
There is a fee.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, there is. Don't have it here in front of me, unfortunately, but there would be a fee.
I think you mentioned that earlier today.
Mhm.
Anyway, that's fine.
$300.
$300? Anyway, if it's beneficial training and counselors are interested in attending, I fully support it, so we have so I'll allow the clerk to reread the motion or whatever with the names attached.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, Councillor DeMarchi had his hand up.
Oh, sorry, Councillor Markey.
Just to make everybody aware, if they need to cancel, there's a $75 fee as well.
Yes,
Councillor DeMarco, you're speaking about the land use plan.
Am I?
Yes,
Yes, you are.
yes.
Sorry about that.
with the name.
Oh, I can reread it. Yes, Mr. Mayor.
Please.
Yes. Moved by Councillor Gattery, seconded by Councillor Druer, that council approve of the following individuals to attend the virtual AMO training navigating conflict relationships on June 14th and 15th, 2023. Councillor Gattery and Councillor Druer.
And no further additions. All those in favor? Seeing no objections, carried. Thanks for your input. This is probably the 70th, no? Yeah. And item B is AMO training, again, land use planning training as an elected official. Movers and seconders again. Councillor Neal and Councillor Gattery.
Moved by Councillor Neal, seconded by Councillor Gattery, that council approve of the following individuals to attend the virtual AMO training, land use planning on blank 2023, and then the following individuals.
So you did mention, Cass, that there's several different dates.
Yes, Mr. Mayor. So there's April 20th, May 3rd, October 25th, and November 7th.
So there's 4 different options to attend, and land planning usually important. Any councilors wish to have their name attached to that? It's virtual training.
Can I ask a question, your worship?
Yes, you can. Councilor.
For the people that are involved in the planning committee for land, should they not be? the ones that are-
Absolutely. Any of the councils that are part of the planning process or the committee of adjustment should actually be on this resolution.
Adjustment.
So I thought you were going to adjust Councilor Neal. So we have Councilor Diamond and Councilor Neal, I believe.
We should be
And I-
talking the committee of adjustment numbers too.
Yeah.
If anybody be interested. I know some of them have been on there for a while, but regardless.
And I would like to have my name attached, please, Madam Clerk. Yes, Councilor.
Your
Neal.
worship, again, I'm probably would not want to be on that committee. I think it's better if people that are actually involved in that planning committee and adjustment committee be put on there.
Okay, I was thinking that you were on the planning, sorry.
No.
It's Councilor Diamond.
Yeah.
Okay. So we can possibly also reach out to the different committee members to see if there's anybody that needs to attend that.
The clerk will be.
And we'll leave that with Cass and she'll do that. Do we have to do an amendment to that resolution or just leave it like that?
No.
For now? Yes, Cass.
I will need to know though, Councillor Diamond, what date would you prefer being signed up for?
Keith suggests April 20th.
Oh, my God.
Councilor Neal, what date should I pick?
What date, Mr. Mayor, for yourself?
You know what? Why don't you throw me almost into hunting season, October 25th?
Okay.
So we have a resolution and I believe you've read it, and the only thing that's been changed is that we have actually Councilor Diamond and myself attending,
Mhm.
plus anybody that the clerk reaches out to from the different committees it requires. So
I'm on the adjustment committee as well.
would you like to attend then?
Okay.
Councilor Gattery? You're gonna have your life well prepared.
No kidding.
You don't have to worry about being bored with this group, do you?
Oh, heavens.
No. You want it? Yes, Cass.
I will, Councillor Gattery, what date would you like to be registered for the training?
April 20th. If it's still open.
All those in favor of the motion? Seeing no objections, carried. And the next item is item C, which is the Town of Deep River School Board Election Support Letter. And our clerk can definitely speak to this one, and we'll get a mover and a seconder while I'm waiting. moved by Counselor Drewer, seconded by Counselor Diamond.
It was moved by Counselor Drewer, seconded by Counselor Diamond. Be it resolved that council accept the support letter from the town of Deep River regarding the town of Petrolia school board elections as information, and that council supports the resolution passed by the town of Petrolia to request that school boards become responsible for conducting their own trustee elections. At minimum, municipalities be compensated by the school boards for overseeing such trustee elections. And that staff forward this resolution to the Honorable Stephen Lecce, Minister of Education.
Yes,
That's
Chris?
just, we might want to add the Minister of Municipal Affairs on there
Yes,
because
Mr. Park.
he's responsible for the Municipal Elections Act,
Yes.
so. Sorry for the interruption.
No, thank you for bringing it to our attention. It's better to have things done right the first time. Any questions or concerns? We have no second, Mary?
We do.
Okay. All those in favor of the motion? Seeing no objections, carried. Okay. And then we're gonna move to close. So then after that, we need a mover and a seconder to move into closed. We have a move by Counselor DeMarchi and seconded by Counselor Neal.
Moved by Counselor DeMarchi, seconded by Counselor Neal. That council now comes into a portion of the meeting that shall be closed to the public at 8:46 PM. In accordance with section 239 subsection 2 clause B of the Municipal Act, in order to discuss personal matters about an identifiable individual, including municipal or local board employees regarding staffing levels and alleged charges under the Planning Act.
All those in favor? Seeing no objections, carried. Yeah, and at this point in time, while everybody that has to leave, I'd like to thank them for attending first off. Second of all, is thank you for your attendance, but unfortunately, we have to ask you to leave. You're just part of the municipal act, gotta follow the rules, and then we'll all take a little bit of a bio break. Anybody that requires a break can take it right now. And then we'll go into our closed agenda. This will give time for Hanji to shut his equipment down.
It used to be a smoke. No, quite quick. Oh, yeah. I'm good with that. Except-
He did go into business. Yeah, he's started having a lot of meetings because economic development, bakery.
McDonald's. So, Doug, just so you're aware, we can talk about this later, but, we're gonna go. I know they were the second half of that. You're likely looking at.
Oh.
So. Doesn't come with those.
Okay. We'll talk. And like I said, when I go down Thursday.
Yeah.
I'm not planning to have any dollars. This was gonna be an opportunity to mention that the big brother, we've got some issues that if they don't resolve.